Hello everyone, and welcome to another Retina UK webinar, Living Well with Inherited Sight Loss, a Young Adult's Perspective. Thank you so much for joining us. Whether you're living with an inherited retinal condition yourself or supporting someone who is through a family member or interested in learning more about the experience of young adults, we're delighted to have you with us today. Today is all about hearing directly from young people who are navigating college, careers, volunteering, friendships, hobbies, and travel whilst living with inherited sight loss. We often hear questions from younger members of our community about what future might look like. Today's speakers will share their own experiences and showing that whilst inherited sight loss can bring challenges, there are many ways to build a fulfilling, independent, and rewarding life. I'm delighted to be joined by our four fantastic guests. First, we have Jay, who will be sharing his experience around employment and his internship with TPT. Then we'll have Sarah, who will be talking about volunteering and becoming involved with Retina UK. We'll also hear from Ryan, who will be discussing hobbies, social connections and friendships. And lastly, Zain, who will be sharing her experiences of travelling with sight loss. Towards the end of our webinar, we'll also be joined by Rob from MakeSense. MakeSense is a team of tech experts empowering people who are blind or have low vision. It is developing the world's first ultra-precise navigation technology for people with sight loss, and Rob is going to tell us all about that later. As always, if you have any questions, please submit them during the Q&A function, which you should find at the bottom of your screen, and we'll aim to answer those towards the end of the webinar. Thank you again for being here, and let's get started by getting to know our guests. So first, what I would like is Jay, Sarah, Ryan and Zain, could you each briefly introduce yourselves and tell us about your sight loss condition? So if we could go in that order, Jay, could we start with you, please?
Yes, my name is Jay. I'm 29, living in Surrey, and I live with retinitis pigmentosa, and I was diagnosed when I was 12 at Moorfields.
Thank you so much. Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm from South Africa, but I currently live in Scotland. I'm 29 and I was only diagnosed with RP when I was 24 a few years ago.
Thank you. Ryan.
I'm Ryan. I'm 27 from Southeast London, and I'm been diagnosed with cone rod dystrophy over the previous year.
Thank you so much. And then lastly, Zain.
I'm Zain. I'm 32, originally from Jordan, based in Glasgow, and I was diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa at the ages of 3 to 6.
Thank you so much. And we'll come to each of you individually over the next conversation. Jay, we're going to start with you. One of the biggest concerns we hear from young adults is around employment and future careers. So I'd like to start talking about how you were a part of the Get Set Progress internship program. So could you please tell us about that program and how you became involved?
Yes, of course. So for anyone that doesn't know, the Thomas Pocklington Trust have this program called the Set Ready program. Basically what it is over the last few years, a lot of young blind people and visually impaired people have really struggled to find employment in the UK. So what the charity decided to do was they created a program that essentially gives blind and visually impaired people, not even just young people, people of any age, just the opportunity to find work experience and get internship placements. And what they found is that it wasn't just a case of blind people were struggling to find work, but it was also they weren't having the right kind of help from industries and companies to sort of help them adjust into the workplace. So it could be a case that they're finding their job, but they're not having any help when they're actually settling into their role. And it went the same with when it went to interviews, there was no adjustments or anything like that. And it's something that I found in myself when I was going for jobs myself. There was no reasonable adjustments. So part of this internship was to kind of knock down that barrier and to sort of create a way in essentially for visually impaired people to not just find employment, but also to help them on their journey. So the Get Set program is a 9-month long program. It runs a couple of times a year, and the one I was on ran from October 2025 and came to an end at the start of June. Essentially what they do is they find you a position that is suited to your background and your interest. With me, I had a big passion for working in charity and fundraising, So they found me a place at Moorfields Eye Charity to start as a grants assistant. Now, grants is something I'd never done before, so obviously it was something that was new, but it was exciting and it was, kind of a new challenge for me. Now, that doesn't mean you have to work in charity. There were interns that worked in-house for TPT themselves. There were people who worked in IT for other charities. There was a whole range of roles that you could do over the 9 months. And what you would do is you would do 4 days a week, Monday to Thursday, on your placement under their employment. And then on Fridays, we would get together, all of us interns, we were put into groups and we were given a group project that we had to work on over the 9 months. Essentially, we were given a question that needed to be answered. And for example, our group was given about what inaccessibility is there within the NHS with visually impaired and blind people. And I was very lucky that Zane and Sarah could help me with that project by coming to my own webinar that I created where I could sort of get their view and their stories of how they found the NHS services, or health services, I should say, in general, not just the NHS, health services in general. And it was really, really interesting to kind of get that understanding of where they had been with that. And at the end of the 9 months, we get to do our presentation in front of industry professionals. And we get to learn a lot about ourselves. We get to learn a lot of different skills over the 9 months. And what's really great about the program is that 3 out of 4 people that take part in this program find employment within the first 3 months after they've left the intern. I'm very lucky in the fact that I can say that I've now stayed on at Moorfields Eye Charity. I've got a new role as a fundraising assistant, and I'm really looking forward now to a future with the charity.
That sounds fantastic. Well done for getting that position as well. You clearly made an impression in your time there, in your internship, which has paid off. What attracted you to apply for the program specifically?
So what attracted me was that I wasn't very happy in the job I was doing. So I was working in a school as a one-to-one tutor, and I found that I wasn't getting the support or kind of any kind of linear progression within my role. I felt the staff didn't really know how to sort of deal with my disability or how to make work more bearable for me. Anything like that. I had no help getting to work or anything like that. And it felt kind of like it was me versus the world. And then one day I just kind of like was having enough and I was like, I need to find something else. And a friend of mine who had done the internship before, the year before, suggested that why don't you do an internship? And I was kind of thinking, I don't really want to like kind of start again or anything like that. And I don't want to have to go through the struggle again of kind of like, having to work with a visual impairment, having to explain yourself all the time and having to kind of fight the system, let's say. But they told me that the internship was designed for visually impaired people. So that's what attracted it to me because I thought, okay, well, I'm going to work with people who actually understand what it's like to work with blind and visually impaired people. And then I had a look at the TPT website just out of interest. And I thought, oh, there's some interesting roles on here. I'll have to think about applying for them over the summer. And coincidentally, the same day that I was looking at the internships, I also went to a Moorfields event. And when I was there, I met the CEO, Robert Quinn, and another colleague of mine at the event. And we were talking about Moorfields and kind of my interests working in charity and things like that. And they said, oh, you should apply for one of our interns. We've just published it on the Thomas Hopkinson Trust. I thought that's a funny coincidence because I was just looking at that this morning. So it kind of almost like, the stars are aligning, things were sort of coming to place that I was meant to apply for that. And that sort of gave me the encouragement to move forward and apply. And thankfully, got an interview and then eventually got the role.
Yeah, great. Already worked out. Now you spoke earlier about the structure and having the development days and the project at the end, which sounds so interesting as a project. What did you find you learnt? What was the most valuable thing you learnt through the program itself and maybe even through the group project?
So I think definitely through the group project. So as you can imagine, there were 4 of us in our group and every single one of us had different levels of sight and had very different stories. But what we found is that as we got about halfway through the project, we realized that we sort of forgot that we had a visual impairment. So I think one thing we all definitely said we learned was that even through the group project and through our placements, it suddenly our visual impairment felt like it didn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
And not as in say it's irrelevant anymore, but just the fact that we found new ways to work together, new ways to work with our companies and our organizations to sort of adapt so that our vision impairments were no longer a barrier.
That's very lovely, especially because you said that was something that was really sort of maybe at the forefront of your mind when you were working in the school as well. It must have been really nice to have that different interaction when you were then in this program.
Exactly.
Would you mind touching on that slightly more, about how have you sort of learned more about yourself or developed new skills that would make you confident when going to a new employer and talking about your sight loss and maybe the adjustments you might need?
Absolutely. So since I've been at Moorfields, I've done a lot of kind of talks at different events that they've asked me to do, and I've found that I've got a bit of a skill for public speaking, which I never knew I had before. I knew that obviously I liked acting and drama. I went to drama school when I was younger, but I had no idea that it wasn't just a case that I enjoyed public speaking, but I was actually quite good at it. So that's definitely kind of like, so engaging with my peers and engaging with industry professionals, it's really like a new skill that I've learned. And thankfully, I can take that forward now with my new fundraising role, which is
Yes.
when I go to new events and I get to do more talks. And now I get to talk at the Retina UK conference as well in September. So there's all these kind of opportunities that have come around now because of it. I've definitely learned that I'm more resilient than I thought I was. A lot of the time back in my old role, I would sort of give up a lot easier and I'd find a reason to blame it on my eyesight. Whereas now I realize that once you put that to one side, I can actually, be a lot stronger in my work, have a lot more confidence in what I'm doing, rather than sort of having that kind of defeatist attitude all the time. And I can definitely speak for other interns that they've definitely felt kind of like they've come out their shell a lot more since being on the internship.
Yeah, that's really, really nice. Now to finish off your section of this webinar, you obviously talked about you secured a full-time role at Moorfields Eye Charity. Can you tell us about that achievement and what advice you'd give to other young people maybe worried about finding work?
So I'd say one piece of advice I'd always give to people, and it's something I wish someone had given me, is that when you do go to your placements and when you do find a workplace that really wants to help you, adapt into the workplace and really wants you to succeed, not just because you're visually impaired or blind, but because, you're a hard worker, is the advice I'd give is honestly with the TPT, especially go for it, because these companies are people that have reached out to TPT because they want more visually impaired people, they want more blind people in their workplace, and they want to be more adaptable, and they want to give people that opportunity to succeed. So I'd feel if you feel that, oh my God, what are people going to think that I'm visually impaired? Are people going to stare at me all the time? Are people going to, kind of not understand? And of course, when you first start anywhere new, if they haven't come across that experience before, they are going to ask questions, but they ask questions and they have conversations with you because they want to understand and they want to help you.
Yeah.
So I'd say it's definitely, if you want to an easier way of getting into the workplace, definitely go through TPT because you'll get 9 months of experience, you'll get 9 months of paid work. And also you'll work with companies and you'll work with people that actually want you to be there.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much. Like you said, it's natural curiosity, even though it might seem daunting when people are asking questions. But like I said, people want to learn. Thank you so much for that, and talking us through your experiences over the last year. I think it's really valuable for people to hear that employment may look different at times, but that opportunities like TPT absolutely exist. So thank you so much. Right, we're going to move on now to Sarah. So a big part of living well is finding a community and getting involved with things that matter to you. And that's something that Sarah has done through working with us and getting involved with Retina UK. So Sarah, can you tell us about how you first became involved with Retina UK?
I first became involved, when I was diagnosed with RP, I was in South Africa on holiday, and I was signposted to Retina SA, and so I reached out to them, and when they knew that I was actually living in the UK, they told me about Retina UK. So I signed up for the emails and stuff pretty quickly after my visual impairment. It took me quite a while to go from just getting the emails to join on a peer support group. And then I only got really involved last year when I went to the conference and met the other young adults that I'd been speaking to on the Zoom calls, and we did the walk over the O2, and I just got more involved from there. I think having met some people in person, and also having just had the time after my diagnosis, then I just got more and more involved, and I started volunteering this year for the Scotland group.
Yes, great, thank you. And can I ask a bit more about what made you go from the emails to then coming in person? Was there anything in particular that made you push you to do that?
I think it was definitely just having, because I joined quite a few of the peer support groups online, and again, you start the peer support groups not talking, everyone else is chatting, you kind of just listening in the background, and I really think it was just time that I needed. And then you get to hear other people's stories and realize, these people can actually understand. And then I think it was just a thing of, the conference is in London, they're going to do something cool, I may as well go down and see everyone. And I think it was just having that event pushed me to actually get involved, where maybe I wouldn't have if it was still just being online. And I just needed that event to kind of push me out of my comfort zone and then meet people in person, and that also just makes you want to stick around with the charity as well when you've made friends with people within the charity.
Yeah, of course, because there were so many people at our conference last year in London, which was absolutely incredible to see. But was that quite overwhelming to meet that many new people, or was it actually very exciting to meet as many people with sight loss?
The actual meeting the people wasn't overwhelming for me. Luckily, I don't find that too stressful. I quite enjoy that. I did stick to myself quite a bit at the conference because we only had the event the day after the conference. So I said hello to a few people that I recognized, and I just thought it was very cool, to see all the guide dogs and everything that you just see online that I didn't really have much lived experience with. But I think just meeting all the young adults the next day, I think that was what was really good for me. Is we can kind of just make a joke out of our tripping over things and stuff, and it's stuff you can joke about with them that you can't really joke about with your other friends. So
of course,
luckily I didn't find it too daunting.
No, and we did certainly finish that weekend on a high, didn't we, at the top of the O2, which was really great, really great. And also, Jay has mentioned our conference as well, and I think I should probably mention now that our conference is taking place again this year in Birmingham, at the Edgbaston Park Hotel and Conference Centre on the 19th of September. At the end of the webinar, I'll give details about that a bit more, but I thought I should mention it given that we've talked about it quite a bit. So let's go back to volunteering. So how did you become involved in being a volunteer?
I think it's all down to Mark. He just sees an opportunity and he's going to ask anyone to help. There is quite a gap, unfortunately, in Scotland. The groups aren't as active as down south. So when I met Colin and chatting to Mark, it was quite obvious to see that we needed something in Scotland, some more help. And I think, honestly, it was just Mark asking me, and he's so nice, so I couldn't say no. And I love working up here in Scotland. I think it's really important because, like we say all the time, we don't want to travel down to London all the time. We want to just get going up here. And I at Sight Village in Glasgow, I met the previous peer support group volunteer from the Glasgow group, and she had stepped down, and so it was actually just really nice to chat to them and talk about ideas, and I think they also quite enjoy that there's a few of us younger people coming through the ranks, and we've got some quite different ideas to what other people in the charity may have. And so we're not going to just do the same old. We're going to push for some, for a bit more out there, peer support groups and all that.
Some fresh ideas, definitely. And what kind of activities have you been involved in with the peer support group? Like, what does the peer support group look like for people who may not know?
So with our Scotland group, we have the online peer support groups, and that's for people from all over Scotland. And it's just a kind of a meet and greet for people to get to know each other. And because I've just taken this over quite recently, we've only had one in-person peer support group at the moment. Zane and myself and a few others, we went to North Berwick. We took the train from Edinburgh to North Berwick, which is a coastal village, and we went and got some fish and chips and had a mosey around the shops. And so we're just trying to make the groups a bit less formal, so that people, no matter what stage of the sight loss people are at, they feel comfortable to come. And it's, you know, the whole peer support group's not just focus around sight loss. It's just about bringing visually impaired people together.
Of course. And have you gotten anything from volunteering yourself? Have you developed new skills maybe you didn't know you had, or further confidence?
I think the confidence is amazing, because you're speaking to people from all walks of life, all ages, and you know, I think I've learned to be diplomatic. I can't say I've always been that diplomatic. It's been really good for my skills to just learn to, you know, how to include everyone, and organizational skills, just getting events going. And I think it's just getting started, really.
Of course. And what would you say to somebody who's thinking about volunteering but feels nervous?
Reach out to everyone at Retina UK, Anish, the volunteering coordinator, and Mark. And I think, you know, everyone at Retina UK so accommodating. And so I think no matter what you feel like you can give to the volunteering, they'll be able to find a role for you or buddy you up with someone who's maybe done that for a while and can teach you the skills. I think it's just about asking, and you know, everyone at the charity is just going to be so happy for the extra help, and just be really accommodating.
Yeah, lovely. And sort of a similar question, but slightly different. How about if somebody's felt nervous about coming to their first event, whether that be a peer support group, for example, or the conference?
What we always say on the young adult group, and I say it as well on the Scotland group, especially for the online meetings, if it's your first time and you're nervous, you can just hop on, put yourself on mute and just listen. You don't have to get involved. You can say as much or as little as you like, because there are people in very varying stages of their sight loss that can talk about it, can't talk about it, maybe just want to hear, you know, they're there for the practical support of bus passes, or they're there for the emotional support. I think with the online meetings, it's much easier to just be in the background and kind of absorbing everything. And with the conference, I mean, last year was my first one. I think there's so many people that you can just go, and if you don't want to talk to anyone, you don't have to. You can just be there again, just soaking it up. And everyone's really friendly, and everyone's there for the same reason. So I definitely don't think it's anything to worry about.
No. And my final question for you is, well, they're kind of two questions, but do you have any meetings coming up with your peer support group? And how would somebody go about joining your peer support group?
So we are in the planning stages of a meeting in the beginning of September, trying to get one more event in while the weather's still a bit bearable up in Scotland, which is hopefully going to be a day trip to the Highlands with an organised bus company, which just makes it that much more accessible without having to take the whole day on public transport up to the Highlands. And again, that's just something that's very low pressure. And so people that are at varying stages of their sight loss journey can join. And it's a fun day out rather than it all being focused around the visual impairment. And for people to get involved, just reach out to Retina UK. We have quite a few people that are just on the mailing list for Scotland, and they join the Zoom calls. And we do also have a Scotland WhatsApp group that people can join. And Mark can just put them in touch with me, and I can add people to that. And that's a lot less formal. That's just us making jokes and asking about bus passes and stuff like that, and throwing ideas around for events, because we obviously want to host events that everyone wants to go to, rather than me just make the plan and no one wants to do it. I'd rather be a collaborative thing. But
of course,
reaching out to Retina UK, and then they can put everyone in touch with me.
Yeah, lovely. And if people head to our website, you can join our mailing list, which is at the bottom of the website page. And there you'll find all the information Sarah's discussing. In our monthly e-newsletter, we advertise which of our peer support groups are going on and how to join a local WhatsApp group as well that would be relevant to you. So that's great. Thank you so much, Sarah. That's so interesting. Ryan, I'm going to move on to you now. So friendships and hobbies are an important part of life for everyone, and sight loss shouldn't stop anyone from enjoying doing the things that they love. Can you tell us about some of your favorite hobbies and interests?
Yeah, so I like to do adventure sports, like climbing, running some marathons, and then also watching a metric ton of football. So they're my main hobbies and interests at the moment. And there you go. So I'm running a marathon in 5 weeks in Bordeaux while drinking 4 bottles of wine as my next stupid thing that I'm about to be doing.
Yeah.
So if it's stupid and or adventurous, I'll probably do it.
Yeah, you're a bit of a daredevil. Yeah, yes. Very, very nice. And what was the football thing you just mentioned? So
I'm a season ticket holder at Charlton Athletic for all of my sins.
Okay. Yeah, very nice, very nice. So you wanted to talk about hobbies and getting involved, especially with having sight loss. Have you found that you've had to adapt any activities because of your sight loss?
Yes, but only slightly, and I think it's actually helped me. So, for instance, for watching football, I now get access to a second season ticket for free as a carer. So now I can bring various friends along with me each week to watch my football team if they believe it's worth their time. And also when running or doing climbing at night, they'll just put me onto the end of the rope to make sure I don't fall down a mountain. And I've tried my luck at guided running as well with one of my friends, and it's quite hard.
Yeah.
So, but it's adapting them but in quite fun ways. So I think it's actually made it quite a fun challenge.
Yeah, nice. As in, so it's an extra challenge. And have you ever found that there have been people that kind of assumed there are certain activities you shouldn't be doing or can't do because of your sight loss?
Yeah, I'll give 2. So, for instance, I jumped out of a serviceable plane. I did a skydive for Retina UK just about a month ago now. And that was because Mark told me to, essentially. And that was one of them. And then another one that we did with the charity was whitewater rafting, where they sent 16 blind and relatively blind, people at the charity to do some whitewater rafting at Lee Valley. So there are two there that people assume that you shouldn't or couldn't do because you are partially sighted, and I've had great fun in doing so.
Yeah, you've overcome both. The whitewater rafting event looked amazing. That was one of our young adults event, and I was editing the video afterwards of you guys doing it, and that just looked so incredibly fun. But I'm glad to see that you are out there just doing these things and showing people that, their preconceptions they're not real. Have you found that your hobbies contributed to your well-being and confidence?
Yes. So you work obviously to pay bills, and then you do your hobbies to have your fun. Without sort of my hobbies, and especially, for instance, I remember in lockdown how when you couldn't do those hobbies, they affected a lot of my well-being. After initially being diagnosed, I was quite scared about not being able to do my hobbies anymore. And then I called Mark, and he said, I used to jump out. I used to jump out of planes. I used to do adventure sports. I used to do all of this. And then he said, I still do. Yeah. And with his vision of sight loss, and that gave me inspiration for sort of knowing that my hobbies and interests will always be able to be done no matter what. Also, I brought one of my friends who is Scottish, to the Retina UK event for the whitewater rafting, and he told me about how his uncle does the audio guides for sight impaired people for Hibernian FC, Hibs FC. So I know that I can still carry on watching my relatively not so beautiful football club.
Yeah, yeah. So it's nice to just share those experiences, which is what you're doing right now, because there'll be people watching this webinar or will watch this webinar who might be thinking they can't do their hobbies, but you're showing that absolutely they can do that. Now let's talk a little bit about friendships and maintaining friendships. Have you found that sight loss affected making or maintaining friendships?
I think it helped for a few of them, because it meant that I joined the Retina UK young adults group earlier this year. I met a bunch of them at the whitewater rafting and the social the night before, where I had a lot of fun. We went out for drinks, we whitewater rafted, and then we stayed for a bit afterwards. And I've actually gained now friends who I'll be seeing again at conference and the night before.
Yeah.
So, and then for my current friends, I think it's just, I just tell them, do you want a free ticket as a carer to take me to this thing? And they're like, yeah, of course, So there's a lot of schemes out there, both government-wise and charity-wise, that sort of help you keep these friendships and make new ones.
Yeah, really nice. And did you find, particularly the friends, who you've had for a long time and then you were diagnosed, do you find that they understood yourself and maybe the needs you might have with your sight loss?
Yes, and so when I'm out at night, they will happily just stay with me until I'm on the train or whatever, and I'll make sure they'll ask questions like, "Oh, can you actually see here, by the way?" Or do we not want to go to a nightclub with bright flashing lights? Can we go to somewhere else?
Yeah.
So I think by telling them, and they can then be adaptable to you, as long as you're just sort of honest, and they'll help you along no matter what.
Of course, you're having that open communication. And what would you say to somebody who might be, they might be newly diagnosed and they have their friends, but they're kind of nervous to talk to their friends about it and their sight loss?
So one of the things that I'd recommend is calling the Retina UK helpline and chatting to Mark without sort of him knowing anything about you or anyone knowing anything about you, and having just a phone call conversation, because that's a lot less daunting to have. And then that helps you speak to people who have your condition and can empathize with you and understand it, before trying to speak to people who you think may see you in a different way. And then, as Sarah mentioned, joining those Zooms or whatever and just listening in, and perhaps putting yourself on mute and no video to start off with until you build up the confidence. And then from there, you slowly building that, and then working out how to tell your friends.
Yeah.
I try and every time I go to Moorfields or have an appointment, I try and find something to look forward to. So it might just be like, oh, do you want to go? You might just message a friend, oh, do you want to go to the pub on this day in London or whatever? And they don't have to know it's because you've been to Moorfields or you've been to eye hospital. They'll just be like, oh, do you want to catch up? And it helps you put your mind off of that.
Yeah, nice. You have that to look forward to after your appointment, is what you're saying. Yeah, nice. Those are really, really good tips. We do often hear through our helpline and, through meeting loads of people that young people might feel quite isolated, especially when they've been diagnosed. And what advice would you give to them?
So I would advise joining the young adults WhatsApp group or the young adults Zoom links, and then eventually going to an in-person meet. And they're really, everyone's quite nice, or very nice at least, and so that's what I'd say. That's what I'd recommend.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And lastly, what advice would you give to someone who has a friend that has just been diagnosed? So somebody might be watching this who is a friend of somebody.
So if you're a friend of someone who's been diagnosed, I think it's worth asking them whether they always want to talk about, for instance, their eye condition, or whether they want to speak about something completely different. I know on various days, sometimes I'll happily, only chat to people about, how my eyes are doing. Then other days I won't want to speak about it at all. So it's about asking them, what can I do to help you? And also let me know when you don't want me to talk about it. For instance, sometimes I'll want to go to pub or go for dinner after one of my appointments, and not actually speak about the appointment whatsoever, but just be, just have a chat on a Friday night pub, and play cards like like I normally do. Whereas other times I'll want them to, you know, sit there and just listen to me ramble on for an hour about the fact that I can't tell the difference between pink and orange or something, you know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, no, of course. That's a really, really great tip. Thank you so much. I know that'll be very, very helpful. It sounds like you just need to have open communication with people, don't you?
Yes.
About how you're thinking and feeling. Thank you. Thank you so much for that discussion. That's going to be really, really helpful. And it's a great reminder that interests and hobbies and friendships remain incredibly important as well for everybody. So thank you. Zain, I'm going to move on to you, our last, and we're going to talk about travel. So travel is often seen as a major milestone for anyone, really. But sometimes we hear about it with sight loss and having that confidence to travel when you are living with sight loss. So you are an avid traveler. Could you tell us about what inspired your interest in travel?
So my interest in travel started from when I was a child. When I got diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa, we didn't have specialists back in Jordan, so I would travel to get my diagnosis or to speak to specialists. And so my family would make a trip out of it and we'd go traveling. And that's how my introduction to travel and culture came about. And it just became an addictive thing that I couldn't stop. Even when moving here to Glasgow, I started to go on day trips, sometimes longer, not only on the mainland, but also to the Outer Hebrides as well. So it started from a young age.
Yeah, sounds really exciting, actually.
Yep.
Can you tell us a very memorable trip or experience that you've had when you've been traveling?
Yes, so in 2024, I was offered a PhD residency to go and speak about guide dogs and how to, work with guide dogs. So I'm a guide dog user. If anybody knows me, I am accompanied by my fluffy companion, Mitch, who is a golden retriever. And so he's recognized everywhere by now. And when I was on the island, I went hiking with my aunt. Unfortunately, the hike did not go to plan because we got lost on a mountain and we needed the Coast Guard to come rescue us with a
Oh
helicopter.
gosh.
But what I learned is the fact that you can become resilient even in times of stress. And I think that was one thing that I learned on that trip, as well as not feeling afraid to ask for help. But I also learned as well that the highest bars of connection on your phone is up on a mountain, 5Gs.
Oh, that's handy. That's good to know.
Yes.
How do you prepare for traveling then? Like, how do you maybe plan your trips?
So what I do is, first of all, I plan 2 weeks in advance because I have a guide dog. So I need to make sure that I have spoken to the guiding team. So I usually travel with Robbies. I've done 13 of their trips so far around Scotland and England. Hopefully we'll be adding Wales this year. And I always ask them if they could let places we are going to visit, so like UNESCO sites or hotels we're staying in, or let's say guest houses that I have a guide dog with me. And if they need any of my documentation, I send them. I also make sure that people on the bus know that I have a guide dog because sometimes people could be scared or they could be allergic. Some cultures are not used to seeing a guide dog. So it's really interesting to see how that interaction happens. And Robbies are very good. They send out an email before the trip letting everybody know that, we have a guide dog and how to interact with him. And the week before I travel, I make sure that I've prepared everything, not only for myself, but for Mitch. So if you think traveling with a suitcase is a lot, my dog has his own suitcase because he has to have his food weighed. He has to have everything he needs in order to make sure that he can do his job. But also with Mitch, he was born during the pandemic. He gets anxious in new places. So I have to take with me something that would calm him as well. But it's also to make sure I have my camera with me. I'm also a avid photographer, so I take my camera with me to take pictures and I document my travels through a sensory experience. And so I take a book and a pen with me. So it usually takes 2 weeks of planning, but it's worth it in the end.
Yeah, because you have such great experiences. And was the company you mentioned Rabbies?
Rabbies, yes.
Right. And I
They
imagine
have
they can.
tours. Yeah, they have tours around the UK, but also international as well.
Okay, perfect. And if someone's interested, I imagine they're online and you can go to their website.
You can check them online. I usually email them because as someone who has a disability, your companion goes with you for free. They accompany you as a sighted guide. As a student, you get also around 10% off. And so I usually email them because I say, I'm bringing a sighted guide. I have Mitch. Do you have space on the bus? Because what they also do is they book an extra seat for Mitch. So Mitch is a 32-kilogram dog, so he's a very big dog. In fact, he's bigger than me, so he needs space.
Yeah, of course, sounds like it. Do you use any sort of technology or apps when you're traveling?
So after my experience on the mountain, I have downloaded an app called 3 What Word. And
Yes.
I've not removed it on my phone. I keep it just in case of emergencies, but it is one of the apps that I use. As someone who likes to go into nature and use my senses, I don't like using technology. I'm very old school. And so what I usually do is I let someone know that I am going on this trip, where I'm going to be. I send contacts, like let's say the person who's coming with me, someone has another contact to them, but also emergency contacts, so they know where I am. But when I first moved to Glasgow, I was on a app called 360 Life. It's only to have my family know that I am safe, just because I was moving during the pandemic, and wherever I go, they would know. But after a while, I removed it, and I basically just let people know, by the way, I'm going on this trip. Just know I'll have my phone with me, but I'm not going to use it, just so I can detach. And that was my way of helping my mental health throughout my PhD, because doing a PhD is very stressful. And my way of detaching, just turning off every technology and just going into the highlands or the islands.
Yeah, into the wild. Very, very nice. Sounds idyllic.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned earlier about being also an avid photographer.
Yes.
And I also know that you are writing a travel book. Could you tell us a little bit about those projects and how your experiences of sight loss has influenced them?
Yes, of course. So I started taking pictures I think it was this year, with a professional camera, going back to what I learned in my undergraduate degree, which is something I love, because if you look at a camera lens, it is basically a metaphor for an eye lens. And it was a way of me helping my friends understand how I saw things. Because when you look through a camera lens, you have to close one eye and look with the other eye. And so it was just a way of adapting to my sight loss journey, because I was going through losing my sight and my peripheral vision mostly when I was in my 20s, and then now I just have central vision. And so I started taking pictures just to document things, so that when I looked at them, I can zoom in on the picture to see it.
Yeah.
And that actually led to me starting publishing those pictures on a social media account. So I'm also known as the Traveling Scholar on social media. So you can find me. It's a public account and you can look at those pictures. But when I document my travels, it's not through sight, it's through touch, smell, taste, feel.
Yeah.
And that is when I got the idea to document it in a book. And this is what I've been doing this year. So I've been writing my travels through a sensory experience around Scotland first. So I'm hoping to do maybe England and then other countries. And hopefully I'll be submitting my first manuscript at the beginning of next year to publish it. And my ideal dream is to voice it into an audiobook, because most people who are undergoing sight loss will focus on audiobooks more than books. And it's seen in research that I've read in journals. But my sight loss journey has opened my eyes, well, no pun intended, to seeing things in a different way. And my mom, when I travel with her, she has the saying is, you may lose your sight, but you have infinite vision. And I think that is my way of seeing things when I travel. And that's why I wanted to share with the world how, someone like myself who's traveling, who is going through sight loss, can actually still travel and experience and have fun without having to strain your eyes.
Yeah. Wow, that is such a lovely sentiment. And your mother sounds like a very wise woman.
She's a role model for sure.
Yeah, she sounds it. My last question was actually going to be, what are you hoping your readers will take away from the book? But I think you may have just summed it up.
Yes, yeah. It's basically for audiences to be able to understand and see how we see the world. A lot of the times, we meet people, and I don't know if it's the same for the people who have spoken, but for me, I would talk to someone and say, yes, I'm visually impaired and I'm registered blind. And the first thing someone tell me is, you don't look it. You're looking at me as if you can see. And I think it's the way we've adapted to looking at people. But for me is, I look at someone, but I don't look with my eyes. I use my ears. So at times I'll be talking to someone and I would either move my head to the right or to the left just to hear their voice. But not a lot of people will understand that. And when I tell people, yes, I'm gallivanting somewhere in the Highlands, are you okay? You sure you're going to be okay walking around on your own? And the one thing I say is I'm not alone, you know, I'm surrounded by so many people, and yet I
Yeah.
can still do something that doesn't need sight to do. And it's something that I want my readers to take away from this book, is that, you know, you can still travel and not needing to see.
Yeah, no, and it's very exciting. You'll have to let us all know when the book happens and is published, and we will all give
I
it a
will.
read.
I will.
My last very quick question is there anything next on the travel wish list?
I am hoping to visit Wales to do the fastest, I think it's known as the fastest zip line
Yes, I
in the
really
UK.
want to do that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
in Snowdon, and I want to also go to, I think it's called Hay-on-Way. It is the town that is filled with bookshops, filled with,
Yes.
yeah, and no wonder I became an academic. I love books, so that's where I want to do. But also the dream is to travel to Spain and Canada.
Lovely. I've just come back from Canada. I'd really recommend it. Yeah, we
Yeah.
will talk about it separately. Thank you so much. Thank you, and thank you for
You're
joining our
welcome.
webinar. That's all of our 4 young adults having expressed and shared their hobbies and interests and experience with us today. And thank you, all 4 of you. We're now going to move on to what I mentioned earlier for the final part of our webinar, where I'm delighted to welcome Rob from MakeSense. As I said, technology is something that's so beneficial to our community, and many of our young adults note the benefit it plays when living with sight loss. And Rob is going to talk to us about the work that he is doing at MakeSense Technology. So Rob, it's over to you.
Hi, yeah, well, thanks for having me. And yeah, I've been associated with Retina for the past few years, actually, mainly through my Mark Baxter's very good friend of mine. So yeah, at the very beginning of the company that we formed, I actually knew Mark Baxter before we began the company, and actually Jay Seymour as well has been to the office, I think, a few months ago, and we were like exploring whether Jay would actually come and work at MakeSense in the marketing kind of department, so to speak. But yeah, we're basically just not ready to start marketing the product just yet. The product that we are building is essentially what we call like the world's first ultra precise line navigation system. So you know, as opposed to something like a smartphone app, which uses audio guidance and low accuracy GPS, we've developed a new type of human machine interface that's scientifically proven to be incredibly precise at guiding a person without having to look at a screen or use any auditory bandwidth. And so this kind of technology has been published in Nature, which is the top science journal in the world, and it's been compared with audio. It's been compared with eyesight. It's been compared with vibration. And it's been shown to be an order of magnitude more efficient than vibration and audio for guiding a person through space. In fact, for getting a person to orientate themselves, it's almost as efficient as using your eyes to look at a target. So we actually did a scientific study where we did a test with 10 blind volunteers at Imperial College, where I did my PhD. We would have, and 10 sighted volunteers, and the sighted volunteers would wear a VR headset, and they would be looking for targets that we would virtually generate around them. And the people that were that had sight loss that we were trialing with didn't wear the headset and instead used our machine to try and point their hands to the targets with the cues from the machine. But yeah, really the goal of the company is to unlock freedom of movement for people that are blind. That's our current mission statement is spontaneous hands-free navigation for every person on Earth. That's our goal. That doesn't mean spontaneous hands-free navigation for every person that can afford an expensive medical device. This means it for everybody, and so we're really trying to like make sure that we capitalize the business properly, so that we can actually get the cost down on the unit price of these machines. Yeah, I mean, we're likely to be launching a commercial pilot early next year. That's likely to be done through Guide Dogs UK. We've currently got a trial ongoing with them, so they're evaluating the vector, we call it. For anyone that's kind of going to go on our website, the website is hugely out of date. Like hugely, we're so focused on getting this product built that we haven't put much focus yet on outreach and communication. And this, yeah, we will start doing a much better job of that over the coming 6 months. But what you'll see on the website is essentially a description of a handheld navigation machine. but we've actually evolved the technology so it doesn't actually use your hands anymore. It's actually a wearable device. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at, where we've gotten to, and where we're going next. And yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it sounds very big, very, very exciting. Can I ask a follow-up question? What inspired the development of the device?
So I did a PhD in a topic called, well, sensory substitution. It's quite a niche, like a field of academic inquiry that hasn't really materialized into any practical benefit, like it's yet. But basically, it's a topic whereby people study how you can pass information or sensory information through defect or through sensors that aren't designed to receive that information, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So, for example, passing auditory information through the sense of touch, for example, is a famous example. So, there's a guy called David Eagleman who's very much inspired the research that I did. David Eagleman made a vest like with lots of vibration motors in it. And it was for people that were profoundly deaf. And it would have a microphone on it, and the microphone would interpret any auditory signal coming in, like say, for example, saying hello. That would then be put as a pattern of vibration through the chest. And at first, for the person wearing it who is deaf, that vibration feels totally random. But if you associate this like repeatable pattern, like hello feels the same every time hello, or like any other thing feels different, the neuroplasticity of our brains is able to adapt to actually kind of start interpreting signals that aren't, the auditory information through the sense of touch, which I thought was amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible research. And yeah, I finished my PhD. I very naively was said, I'm going to have a go at making a sensory substitution device for blindness. That was just kind of, I don't know, I just wanted to be an inventor really, and I was fascinated by the topic. And that was 4 years ago now, and it was just me back then, but now we've got 24 staff, and there's
Wow.
we've got scientific advocacy evidence, and we've got venture capital, and it's really snowballed, and it's yeah, somewhat of a dream come true for me to be. I feel privileged to be in a position where we can actually make something that helps people. That's such a privileged career to have.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite motivating, right? I imagine as well, to know that you're going to do something that is going to help. Yeah.
I mean, like going to a client's house of ours, a lady called Nada, recently, just for her, the product is life-changing. And so, it's I went to her house and she was just so well, she seemed so like grateful that we've been making something like this, and it kind of hit me then. I was like, oh my God, have we actually managed to do this, or like at least get close to doing this? Because it feels like it's been such a long way. And at the beginning, it was like not particularly impressive. And so yeah, it's just gradually gotten to the point now where there's just a huge team of people around me, and every single one of them is more capable than I am in like many different ways. And my job's gradually been whittled away as the CEO and the founder. So now, like, there's nothing I'm the best at. And like, we've basically, I now just become the storyteller and the fundraiser, and I just get the other people get on with it. I get out of their way and just try and organize them a little bit.
But it sounds so exciting. And obviously you'll have to keep us up to date with the progress of things. You said maybe early next year we can start a pilot.
Yeah, so it'll probably be a 200-person pilot through Guide Dogs UK. So we'll probably at first be targeting the so Guide Dogs. Most people don't know, but they're very, very expensive to train. Across the lifetime of a dog, it's about £110,000 of cost to the organisation. And it's not just that they're expensive; it's that you can't just multiply a guide dog. You can't just manufacture one, and the training programs can take some time and uncertain. And so even if you've been approved for a guide dog and you've passed all of the kind of criteria that you need to get one, you can still be stuck on a waiting list for quite some time. And at the moment, they've got approximately 2,000 people on their approved service users list. And so what we're kind of trying to put a case forward to them is that, like, if we did this pilot, we could start with people on the approved service users list because there are likely to be good candidates for like early adopters for technology. And likely to be, wanting to be mobile and wanting to go out, like the kinds of people that want a guide dog and will need a guide dog is the people that we would probably go for first.
Yeah, So it makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing. It sounds so interesting and fascinating. Thank you. I hope it all goes well. And very, very impressive as well. But thank you. And that actually brings us to the end of our webinar, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you especially to our 5 speakers for joining us and taking their time to share their experience with us today. We hope today's discussion has given you some practical ideas or encouragement and confidence, whether you're a young person yourself living with sight loss or supporting somebody that is. Now, in this webinar, we mentioned so many of Retina UK services. So if you are thinking about maybe wanting to join a peer support group like our Young Adults Peer Support Group or the Scotland one, like Sarah mentioned, we have many peer support groups that we have. Or you want to think about volunteering roles or future webinars if you've really enjoyed this one. Or, as we mentioned quite a bit, our upcoming conference, which is in September the 19th. Please do head to the Retina UK website. You can find that at retinauk.org.uk. If you want to see the lineup for our conference, that will also be found on our website at retinauk.org.uk/annual-conference. We have a great programme, a great lineup of speakers. And you'll hear my voice all day if you really enjoyed it. But thank you again for joining us, and we hope to see you at another Retina UK webinar. Again, take care and goodbye.